The hugs, the grins, the numerous firsts, the first smile, the first word, the first step. As far as life-altering experiences go, parenthood clearly takes the biggest trophy. But while the flood of emotion that overwhelms the new parent always remains the same, the path from conceiving the baby to actually holding your baby for the first time is now lined with options. Well, thanks to medical science and miracles of technology, those who have braved infertility struggles now have hope. In vitro fertilization and surrogacy have altered the rules of the games, but it comes at a cost. There is no doubt that assisted reproduction, also comes with its own set of problems. And for many, it's also a harrowing emotional and physical process. To discuss the various aspects of this issue, we have with us noticed reproduction specialist, Dr. Firuza Parikh. Let's just hear and see a little bit more about Dr. Firuza Parikh. Dr. Parikh, I kindly request you to come on stage. I want to begin by asking you, that's the mic there. Yeah. How difficult it is for a mother to give birth, with detachment and just let go of a baby. Is the emotional, link between the mother and the baby snapped when the cord is cut?
Avandika, first, let me tell you, my ears went up when you said you have twins.
Yes, and I'm a very proud mother of twin baby girls. They're two.
I think you're referring to the act of giving up the child when a surrogate mother's umbilical cord is cut from the baby. Surrogate mothers in our society play a very important role. They nurture the child, but they know that the role ends as soon as the baby is born. It's very contractual for them. Okay. That doesn't mean that they're not altruistic. That doesn't mean they don't have emotions, the doctors and the obstetric team. By and large, having dealt with surrogate mothers, by and large, they're very happy to let go in the sense they feel that they had a commitment, they have fulfilled the commitment. Sometimes they ask us, did I do the job right? Is the baby healthy? Are the parents happy? But by and large, their commitment is over when the baby is born.
Dr. Parikh, when I was pregnant, I came across a lady when we had gone for our checkups, and you just tend to meet someone, and we got talking. We started exchanging notes, and very matter-of-factly, she says, no, but this baby is for my sister-in-law. Now, her rather nonchalant response at that time did baffle me. I was quite stumped. And I got thinking when I got back home that it's also a journey, right? You conceive, and I'm pro-choice, but especially moments like when you feel the baby inside your womb. Are you saying that there's a complete sense of detachment from the gestational mother and the baby in the womb?
Unfortunately, there has to be, because she
knows... But that's from the doctor's perspective.
No, even from the surrogate's perspective, she knows it's contractual. She has emotions, but her emotions are reserved for her children, for whom she is doing this, so that they can have a better life.
Right. When you see a mother, who do you see as the real mother? Is it the lady who has given the egg to be fertilized with the sperm? Or is it the lady who's carrying the baby? Who is the mother for you?
Both are mothers. In fact, sometimes when surrogate children have to be told that they've come from a surrogate. In fact, very recently we were counseling a couple who didn't know how to tell the child how he was born. So we said, let's do it this way. You tell the child that for some time you were in my stomach, the genetic mother's stomach, but after some time there was another mother who had to carry you because my uterus was weak. So actually you are lucky, you have two mothers. So it's how you say it to the child, how you break the news to a child.
But have there been instances when a mother gives away her baby, there is a sense of grief? Have you come across that? And is there therapy for the surrogate mothers?
Before a woman can become a surrogate mother, she does have intense counseling.
How does one select a surrogate
Yes,
mother?
surrogates are selected very carefully. They usually approach an agency which will screen them first to see the environment they are in. All surrogate mothers have to have children of their own. They have to have bonded with their own genetic children. It's very important because it's only then that she will eat well, she'll feel for the child, she'll carry the child as her own and not think of herself just as a vessel or an oven where she's cooking the baby for 9 months. So there is psychological profiling that is done, there is counseling that is done by doctors. The husbands of the surrogates are also called in. The social worker from the agency will go to the environment where the surrogate lives, to a house, see the happiness and select the woman accordingly.
But ma'am, I mean, that sounds extremely ideal. I'm just saying, what if we step back and just look at surrogacy? First of all, is it lawful in India? Also, are there proper checks and balances? Of course, there are renowned clinics, but do we have the proper regulations to, see through the process of surrogacy and for surrogate parenthood?
This is a very important question that you have raised. In India, surrogacy is completely legal. In fact, I was on the drafting committee for setting up guidelines, national guidelines for ART clinics in India. Those guidelines took us almost 8 to 9 years to complete. So the Indian Council of Medical Research today, there's a big fat book which has guidelines telling all the doctors who have to be registered. Anybody who does IVF cannot just do IVF, they have to be registered with the Indian Council of Medical Research. And then the guidelines are followed, whatever is laid down. So yes, surrogacy is legal in India. On the flip side, there are clinics that mushroom, and ever so often we come across horror stories where a child who is an extra child, the couple didn't want twins and leaves the child behind. But those are more exceptions than the rule. By and large, good clinics will look after not only the surrogate, but the child and also the intended parent.
Okay, so in that scenario, what if, God forsake, there's a death, or there are birth complications, or the baby is, deformed, or, the intending parents, they have a change of heart and would not want to, or there's a breach of contract. What happens in that scenario?
Oh yeah, such things can happen, and they do happen. There was a case in, I think in Ahmedabad some time back, where the surrogate lady developed seizures and passed away. And there was nothing the doctors could do. Of course, the intended parents looked after the family of the lady and compensated them, but these things do happen. Breach of contract usually does not happen because the surrogate has her own mouths to feed. She really doesn't want one more child to feed. Surrogates are compensated. They are aware of their rights. Usually, the intended parent will not say that now I don't want this baby, because all the genetic checks, all the tests, all the scans are done by the first trimester, where by and large we will know very well about the genetic health of the baby and the physical health of the baby.
What about the surrogate mother who's carrying the child and her family members, especially, her husband? Because by and large, most of these ladies do come from underprivileged backgrounds, as we've seen, the norm.
Yes, most of them.
Money is the main motivator.
It is the driving factor.
I want to understand that how do her own biological children, accept their mother in that state? Because pregnancy in itself plays quite a turmoil. You're cranky and you go through a wave of emotions.
Yes.
So how does that impact the rest of her family?
It does impact her children sometimes. I can tell you about an example where the surrogate was pregnant and she hadn't informed her youngest child, and the child was missing the mother and refused to go to school. Normally what happens is surrogate ladies are kept in a surrogate home. They are allowed to go home off and on to their own house, maybe once in 10 days. And it became very difficult for this child to the point that finally we had to bring the baby to stay at the surrogate house with the surrogate mother.
No, so is the mother does not stay with the rest of the family while she is carrying the baby?
It depends. Some of them would prefer to stay in their environment. Some would prefer to stay at the surrogate house because they may not want all the people in the neighborhood to know that she's doing surrogacy.
Okay. I want to make this discussion very, two-way, and I would really love to take some questions now as we go ahead. So I would even request you ladies, if you have some questions, to pitch in and not make this a two-way conversation from here. That way, lots more questions can be answered. Yes, ma'am. Actually, can I just ask another lady to have an opportunity to speak? Yes? Thank you. Can we have the mic here, please? Ma'am, the mic. Thank you.
I just wondered what happens if the surrogate decides she wants to keep the baby? And where do you go from there?
So there has been a very interesting case many, many years ago of baby M, where the surrogate also happened to be she was not only the gestational mother, but also the genetic mother. And you may have heard of baby M, where after a while she didn't want to part with the baby. Now the intended parents were very influential, so they did manage to get the baby back, but this lady did have rights to visiting her child. So the legal battle went on and on and on for a long time. Then, because at that point surrogacy was very new, very novel. As surrogacy progressed and as laws came into place, things became more stringent. So there are very, very tight contracts which do not permit the surrogate lady to take the child. There are lawyers which are involved on both the sides. So today it would be very difficult for the surrogate mother to take away the child.
Dr. Parikh, but these are ICMR guidelines that you're mentioning. The contract, is it legally binding?
The contracts nowadays are made legally binding.
All right.
Initially, I'll tell you, when surrogacy in India at least started, say, in the late 2000s, 2006, 2007, the surrogacy contract was literally 2 pages. Today, if you see the surrogacy contract, it runs into about 60 pages. So, she won't be able to do that.
But I just wanted to ask you, legally, yes, who has the first rights to the child? It is the gestational mother, right?
No. Okay, so this is very interesting question. In UK, there are laws which gives the first right to the child to the woman who carries the baby and to her husband. So the surrogate lady has to have a document called rights relinquish, where she will literally relinquish her rights to the baby. So it's a very long, due process.
Okay.
But it's an exceptionally good process,
right,
and it takes almost 3 weeks of the forms going up and down after the baby is born, particularly if it is a UK citizen and the husband is also a UK citizen. So she actually has to relinquish her first right to the baby.
But Dr. Parikh, you are a reputed specialist in this. Do you have fears that surrogacy is getting exploitative and, the health of these women is also on line?
Absolutely. It could be an exploitative process, and therefore ICMR has set in some rules. A surrogate mother ideally should not be a surrogate mother more than twice. But sometimes, you know what they do?
Yeah.
They may deliver in one clinic, not declare that they've done surrogacy, perhaps after 2 years or 1 year go to another clinic and say they've never done surrogacy before. So yes, there are lacunae, but after all, these women are looking for some stability, some financial stability for their house, for their children.
Understandable, absolutely. Any more questions? Yes, the lady at the back there.
So I'm Dr. Kaveri Banerjee. I'm also an IVF and surrogacy expert.
Hi, Kaveri.
Hello, ma'am. It's really an honor to have you here. So the discussion was towards the exploitative aspect of surrogacy. And being an infertility doctor, when we see thousands of infertile couples coming to us, unable to get pregnant. And when surrogacy happens to be a good, plausible alternative for them to have their own genetic child, I think it's the responsibility of the clinics and the doctors to ensure that it is done in a proper, legal, ethical way, but definitely of the society also, as to not only look at its exploitative aspect, but also to see how it is helping the infertile couple and how it is also helping her. Getting about 3 to 4 lakhs of rupees for these women is something they would never achieve in their entire lifetime.
But if it becomes a law, nothing like it. I mean, this is a legislation that's still pending.
We are waiting for it to go into legislation. In fact, it was to be tabled last year.
Yes.
We are waiting for it to get tabled this year.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about, does the mother who's carrying, the surrogate mother who's carrying the baby, in any way carry, any genetic element from, or does the baby carry any genes from her?
You know, that is the most common question that parents ask us.
It's something that most people ask.
Will the surrogate baby's blood come into my baby? What if we are vegetarian and the surrogate lady is non-vegetarian? No, these are real time questions. Sometimes people want a surrogate of a particular community, which by and large we don't try to encourage. Will my baby be dark? These are typical questions, sometimes laden with fear. But luckily the placenta is a biggest divider and a biggest separator. Nothing from the mother goes into the baby except molecules of nutrition. So the placenta doesn't allow blood to breach or go on to the other side.
But with so much of technology happening, I mean, I completely agree with you, Dr. Banerjee. I mean, this is a boon. Anyone who wishes becomes a mother and cannot for any other medical purposes, it's lovely to have a child. But do you think with the advent of technology and the meddling with nature that most people say could possibly be threatful to humanity at some point in stage?
There are lots and lots of checks. Everybody was at one point worried about cloning. Oh, if cloning comes in, there'll be Hitlers, there'll be this kind of people. All kinds of biology always has checks. Any big technology or a big breakthrough cannot be the work of one person. It has to be the work of an institution. Institution will consist not only of doctors and scientists, there will be ethicists, there will be philosophers, there will be common people. So if you see any ethics committee, will always have a very, very balanced group of people, doctors, scientists, lawyers, judges, even people who are religious leaders. So I don't think there can ever be any kind of mad scientist who will get away with doing any kind of technology which will be detriment to the world.
I think we've spoken whatever we could in the given time about surrogacy, but I want to just talk about another thing. In India, what I've noticed is when you get married, you're just supposed to procreate the next day. So I've actually literally got that okay, when are we hearing the good news? And personally, we made the choice that we would take some time, enjoy the relationship, and after 3 years, the eyebrows are raised, and after 5 years, it's inevitable that the lady would be having some problem. Why is the focus so much on the woman, What about male infertility? That is something which is also alarming. There is a social taboo attached to it, but do you see the trends changing? Now, I'm not just talking about, the other, the metropolitan cities, by and large. Why don't men have a ticking biological clock?
So I'll answer this question in two parts. The first part is the Indian woman finds a place in society only when she's a wife and only when she's a mother. So that's where the problems begin. But yes, today there is a lot of education, be it through the media, be it through good reading, be it through education, where the man feels equally responsible. And at our clinic, we ever so often see a couple who's coming for the first time is usually accompanied by the husband. The husbands are very proactive. They do tend to own up if they are a problem. So I think this is a very healthy trend. when I started my practice 25 years ago, it would be the poor daughter-in-law being goaded by the mother-in-law. But things are changing. We are seeing that men are more responsive and responsible. I think it's a very healthy trend.
But I want to ask you about sperms. Is there an age group in men when they can produce healthy sperms? And is there an age, cap for men when sperms probably is not as good as what they could produce when they're in their 20s, I guess?
Now, what I'm going to say may deflate the egos of some of the men who are around. A woman's biological clock is most active between 24 and 34. That's why the hurry to have children when we are younger. Men would think they can have babies even at 70, but there are lots of studies which have shown that the fragmentation of the genetic material, the DNA of the sperm, starts by the time they are 40. So if you want healthy children, men should start procreating by 35, 36. Because after 40, there is a decline, a slow but a sure decline.
Great. Can I have the last question? Oh, Kali?
Ma'am, surrogacy is a wonderful gift for women who can't have babies. But there have been cases where it's being used as the easy option out. Like, I don't have to do the whole 9-month thing. I get to keep my body and I'll just get a baby at the end of it. What do you think about that, the misuse of it?
Definitely. So, surrogacy is a very defined medical procedure. Just as IVF is defined, surrogacy has a very important role to play for women who don't have a uterus, or whether uterus is affected with TB, or they have immunological problems like very high diabetes, high blood pressure. Just last week, a very dear friend's daughter came up to me and told me, Firuza aunty, I don't think I'm going to carry a baby. I don't think I'm going to carry a baby. It's too much work. Do you think you'll convince my parents that I can have a baby with surrogacy? I said, but don't you want to have the pleasure of carrying a baby and having the baby kick inside you? She says, I don't like these vicarious thrills. I'd rather have my 2 babies and let somebody else do all the hard work. I know she was joking. I think she was just trying to stretch me with an argument. I don't think that should be encouraged, because then that would be exploitation. If somebody is going to use another woman for her comfort, yes, then I would consider that as exploitation.
That's very interesting. So when do you draw the line? So if somebody comes to you, when is it that you feel that, okay, this person, is it only because if the intending mother, she has medical issues, or if the father has some other medical issues, is it then doctors recommend surrogacy?
Yes.
Is the fact that I don't have time good enough reason?
There I would definitely draw the line. She wouldn't be able to step that line with me. I feel there has to be a medical indication for doing surrogacy. We can't have somebody else doing the hard work.
What about older women?
Yes, older women would become a medical condition if somebody hasn't had the opportunity to have a child when she was younger for whatever reason. An older woman's body may not be able to take the birth, may not be able to take the 9 months of work. Older women are prone to high blood pressure, to diabetes. So yes, that does become a medical indication.
Dr. Parikh, what about single women? Now, as it is, there are so many legal, ethical hurdles for a husband and wife who intend to have their baby via surrogacy. But what about a single woman? How difficult it is for a single woman to have a baby?
We don't need a stamp of marriage to have a baby. I think single women and men should be encouraged to have as many babies.
But what about the child rights? What goes on the birth certificate?
The name of the mother goes on the birth certificate if it is a single woman, and where it says father, it says unknown. So single mother can have legally a child with her name on the birth certificate.
Oh, and that is acceptable?
That is acceptable.
All right. Any more questions? Kali?
One more, please. Ma'am, does it affect the bonding between mother and child if the baby is carried by a surrogate?
Again, that's a question which mothers and fathers ask us, particularly closer to the time when the child is going to be born. How will I bond with my child if I won't be able to give breast milk? How will I do it? So yes, there is a fear that they will not be able to born, but I think these fears are very unfound. The moment the child is born, I think it is in mothers, in women, being a mother is extremely natural, and the bonding, I think, occurs immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I think breastfeeding was a little tad too bit overrated for me, especially with twins. Oh my God. So I wanted to ask you about, just taking off from where Kali had left, that what about women who don't have the time, but would want to concentrate, take some time on their careers or their life, or just do anything that they want and have babies later. They are in their mid-30s or early 30s. I did read about egg freezing, which happens, but eggs from a 30-year-old, and then when you implant it when you're 39, 40, can your body take that pregnancy then?
Right. So, very interesting question. Every woman is born with a limited supply of eggs. We are all born with about 500,000 eggs. The eggs are genetically good and viable, the best between 24 and 34. Then they start genetically deteriorating. So, I encourage everybody to freeze the eggs when they are 25, 26. Use them when they are 35. Because remember, the somatic cells will keep dividing, whereas the germ-line cells will no longer divide. So, a woman at 40 will be physically fit. She may not look 40, she may look a young 30, but her eggs will definitely not lie. So, it's a great idea to freeze eggs.
All right. Just one last question. Anyone? Okay. All right, Dr. Parikh, I think I'm running out of time, but this is a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I would request Pooja Garg of PCJ to kindly come and give a small token of appreciation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me with you.
Thank you so much.